Students, in this video lecture, we will discuss about second chapter of class 8th geography, that is natural resources, land, soil and water. In the previous lecture, that means in the resources chapter, we have discussed about resources, types of resources. In that, we have discussed that the resources are mainly three different types. They are natural, human as well as human made resources. In this video, the second chapter discusses about this natural resources. You all know what are these natural resources, such as land, water, soil, air, etc., etc. So among these natural resources, in this lecture we will mainly discuss about land, soil as well as water. So first, let us talk about this land as a resource. What is the use of this land? Why do we consider land as a resource? So you all know that land is very less available on this earth. Out of the total area of the earth, that only just 29% is covered with land. Remaining 70%, 71%, as you all know, it is covered with this water. And even though it is just 29%, but the distribution of the population is highly uneven. That means there are some few areas where the population is very high. There are some areas where the population is very less. That means the distribution of population is not same everywhere. In some areas people are more, in some areas people are very less. And as you see here, about 90% of the world's population, they just occupy only 30% of the land area. That means almost 90% of the population in this world, they are living in an area which is just only 30%. And there are some areas where the population is very high, and there are some areas the population is very less. And even there are some places on this earth where human beings cannot survive, human beings cannot live, or human beings cannot stay for a longer time. There are such places. They are steep slopes, marshlands, deserts, cold climate areas as well as thick forests. So here you all know steep slopes means such as if the slopes are like this, or mountains or hills, in these regions people cannot live. And marshlands means there are some areas where they are completely covered with water, or they are completely covered with wet. They will be wet throughout the year. So in that areas also we cannot be living. Deserts, as you all know, as the availability of water is very less, here also people cannot survive. And cold climatic conditions, thick forests. So like this, there are some areas where the population cannot survive. At the same time, on the other hand, there are some places such as river valleys, plain areas where the population is very high. And you all know that the land is a resource. It can be used for various purposes. So how do we use this land? What are the advantages of this land? How we can use this land? So using the land for various purposes is known as this land use. We use land for various purposes, such as we cultivate the land, we construct our house, we may use it for grazing, we may use it for mining, or we may use it for any other purpose. There are different purposes why we use this land. So here you see cultivation, grazing, mining, construction, etc. So we use land for various purposes. And what are the factors that are responsible for this land use? How do we decide the use of this land? Which factors mainly impact on this use of this land? So factors responsible for land use are physical factors, human factors as well as economic factors. So in your higher classes, in detail we can discuss about what are these human factors, what are these physical factors, what are these economic factors. But as of now, some of these factors are such as relief, climate and soil. Relief means any area the highest and lowest area of any place, we call it as this relief. And climate as well as soil. If the climate is good, if the soil is very good type soil, then if the area is plain area, then in those areas you can see the land use will be somewhat very higher. And at the same time, the other factors such as land tenure and technical know-how. That means what is the capacity of land, how many years the land can be put into use. Then at the same time, technical know-how, what is the available technology right now, which through which we can actually use this land. So these are some of the factors by which we can say the land use, how we are using this land. As we are discussing about this land use land can be under private ownership or sometimes community ownership. That means the land, sometimes an individual person can own a land, or sometimes a community can own a land. So if the person is holding the land, or if it is under private ownership, it is the land can be used according to the need of the landowner. That means an individual, for suppose he is having a land of 1 acre, he can use that land for various purposes according to his will, according to his wish. He may use it for construction of house, or he may use it for cultivation, or he may use it for some other purpose. So like this, when an individual owns any kind of land, we call it as this private ownership, and he or she, they can use that land according to their will and wish. But whereas if the land is community ownership, then it is used to serve the purpose of the community. That means for example, a group of people, if they own a land, particular land, or a village people, if they own a land, they use for the use of entire community. That means they'll not think about one family purpose. They usually think about as a community, that means as a group, what they would like to do with that land. So sometimes this can be used for fodder. That means producing sometimes cultivating these crops for animals, or to collect fuel wood. Suppose in villages they may collect fuel wood, so, and sometimes they may also graze their cattle, and sometimes they may use for some other purposes. They may make it into a big public park, or they may also make it into a burial ground, or they have also chances can make it into a playground. But it should serve the purpose of the community, not an individual. Whereas in the private ownership, it is according to the wish of the landowner. And that's why this community land is also known as common property resource. That means it does not belongs to a single person. And there are some people, what they always try to do is that since the size of the land is very very small, that means we cannot increase the size of the land on this earth. Therefore, within the available land, within the available size of the land, we need to maximize the use of this land. That means we should try to get more benefits from the limited land. So that is what we'll see here. So to get maximum benefits from the land, we should prepare a plan of land use. That means we should have a proper plan how to use the land. Without any plan, we may not be able to use the land properly. Therefore, we should have a proper plan of land use. But this plan, it should consider two important factors. They are, one is nature and quality of the land, and sometimes need of the community. Suppose before you go for planning, what you try to do is that what you are supposed to do, that you have to consider this nature and quality of the land. That means what type of land it is. At the same time, whether it is having any kind of quality, whether it is a high quality land, or whether it is low quality land, and whether it is highly suitable for cultivation. What are the characteristics of this land? So all these things we should consider before going for this land use plan. Then at the same time, the second one very very important thing is this need of the community. What the community wants, or what the community is expecting from this kind of land. Just imagine, for example, there is a village, and just beside the village there is a place which is right now having very good nature, at the same time having having very good quality. Now just imagine the second step which we should consider is that need of the community. What these villages like, what these villages are expecting to get something from this land. Just imagine that all these villages, they would love to drink tea every day. So therefore what they would try to expect is that they will try to cultivate tea in this particular area. Or if any person, if he or she owns the land, if he or she cultivates this tea, automatically there will be some growth, and the land can be put into maximum use, and he can gain more profits. Why? Because as I told, if this entire village people, they are tea lovers, obviously they'll buy the tea leaves or tea powder from this land. So like this, we should also ensure the need of the community before we go for this land use plan. So in order to maximize the benefits from this land, we should have a land use plan. And before having this land use plan, what we have to ensure is that it should consider two important factors. They are nature and quality of the land. Second one is need of the community. As you all know that India is a largely very hugely populated country, or you can say India is having a very large population. So in order to serve food for such a large population, we have already very less amount of land, but we have to produce more and more crops. So therefore, what are the factors that are responsible for cultivation of land in India? So let us see what are the factors that are responsible for cultivation of land in India, especially in India. So what are these factors? Are, as we have already discussed, the first and very important factor is relief factor. Then second one is this fertility of the soil. That means whether the soil is fertile soil or normal soil. For example, if you take soils such as alluvial soils, black soils, they are somewhat highly fertile in comparison with soils such as arid soils. And the next one is about this availability of the water. Suppose the land is there just beside of this what is known as a river, a pond, a canal, or you can say any other water resource, any other water source. There the cultivation can be high, they can produce more and more number of goods. And where at the same time needs of the people, what people are looking for, what they are trying to get, what they are trying to produce, and what are the requirements of the population. So depending upon these factors, the cultivation of land depends in our country. And we are, as you all know, the land is very limited and we are using without any what is that mercy on the land. Day by day we are overutilizing this land. What happens is that when we overutilize this land, what happens? The land fertility, the quality of the land may be degraded. So therefore we need to conserve this land resource. That means we need to save this resource. So what are the methods or steps we can follow to conserve this land resource? So the first and very important thing is that checking for the spread of deserts. That means we are not supposed to spread the deserts, or we should control the spreading of deserts. That means we should try to plant more and more number of trees. That is what here it says, this afforestation. And second one is that adopting some of the scientific techniques. We have nowadays day by day the technology is improving. So by using some technology we can actually save this land. And conserving soil and forest, as of just now mentioned, afforestation or conserving forest. If you save the forest, automatically you can save the land. You can also follow this, so you can also save this soil. That means you can conserve this soil. And providing this irrigation facilities, if you can provide proper irrigation facilities, means you can actually save the land, you can actually conserve this land. Then at the same time increasing the use of manure. Instead of using all these chemically made fertilizers or other fertilizers, if you use natural manure which is made out of waste, plant waste or animal waste, we can actually increase the quality of the land, we can actually produce more and more, and we can save the land. And the other one, as I said, afforestation. Then next very important thing is this checking over grazing. That means checking over grazing means what happens is that when we graze the animals, what happens is that without any control we graze more and more animals in the same place for a longer time. So if that is the case, automatically the land may lose its fertility, or sometimes the land may be degraded. So therefore we need to have a control on this overgrazing. Whoever is grazing the animals more and more, they should have some other methods to graze their animals, and they should try to conserve this land. So if we can follow all these steps, we can actually conserve the very limited amount of land which is available on this earth. We can save them, and we can also share that to the next coming generations. Thank you.